Hi.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Now, you guys are actually independent filmmakers.
That's right.
So
Yep.
I'm assuming that means you work with film.
Yep.
Good deduction, Davina. Yeah, so what are you guys doing at the moment? Because you've come in to talk to us about a project that you've got going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, Heather's the director, so I'm going to hand straight over to her and let her chatter about it.
All right. Well, what it's about is about the ex-gay conversion therapies and
Gay to straight camps.
yeah, exactly. And there's not
Strange
just camps. There's workshops, counselling,
Yeah.
and a lot of places are operating outside of in places in southeast Queensland. Although electroshock or aversion therapy is a thing of the past, there are many organisations in Queensland that do have programs that claim to reorientate one's sexuality through therapy or workshops, and we call these ex-gay or conversion groups.
Yep.
Well, not necessarily specific to a denomination. There's many different organisations out there.
Are they usually attached to a particular religious
They tend to
group,
be
or is it-
Christian faith-based or have some religious rhetoric background. So we're actually really hoping that by coming on the radio tonight, we might actually make contact with someone who has heard of a program that isn't faith-based or religious background, because we're yet to come across one. They all seem to tend to be centred on religious beliefs.
I used to work with a guy out at Sunnybank years back when I was, going through uni and, working crappy jobs to pay my way through uni and stuff. And he was the most beautiful boy out ever you could ever meet. And his dad came home one day, and he was gay, very gay. And his dad came home one day with this gay to, it was a website, some sort of gay to straight website. I'm not going to say what it is. If people want to look that stuff up, they can do it themselves without me directing them to it. But and it was just such a massive shock for him. He thought that his parents were dealing with it or what have you, and then all of a sudden he gets told about these wonderful programs that can help him stop being who he truly is, which must be just horrific for people.
Interestingly enough, out of that, the actual basis of a lot of these ideas is actually like a warped Freudian type view, which usually is very focused on men. It's like women are kind of invisible. The idea is that there's a distant father and an overprotective mother, which sort of means that a man struggles with their own masculinity.
The woman takes on the roles, the domineering male role.
Yeah, there's this idea that these programs will help you understand your true femininity or your true masculinity.
What does that even mean?
Well, I wonder how anybody can preach any kind of, absolute truth. I think we're all anybody.
I've got a great quote from one of the websites. If you don't hug your son, some other man will.
Which we should all fear that we might hug each other.
Hang on a minute, some other man. I know there's so many things wrong with that quote. I love it. Yes, that's what they will when they're on the football field. I think you're right there, Ruth. Ruth is sort of in the background at the minute. She's giving up her microphone. Believe it or not, she's willing not to talk. Yeah, she's good. Yeah, cool. So what are you guys doing in relation to this? What's happening with your with
the project? Yeah, it's a documentary. At the moment, we're looking at about 30 minutes. We're hoping to hit the festival scene with it, and maybe even pitch it to TV once we've sort of put it out there.
Yep.
Basically, at the moment, we've made contact with a couple of figures within the gay community. Dr. Paul Martin is somebody from Brisbane based, and he's a great guy and very knowledgeable on the subject himself, having actually gone through some of these programs himself as a young guy. Yeah,
he's just won one of the awards for the
25 most influential people in the LGBT community through Same.
Yeah. He also the recent Pride Awards, Pride Brisbane Awards.
Okay.
Yes,
for sure.
Paul Martin. I think 2 awards.
Wonderful man, very articulate, very caring. So he's been great, and he'll be a part of the documentary. And basically at the moment we're really at that research stage where we're throwing it out there to our community and hoping that people will touch base with us via our Facebook. And that's just The Cure, which is the title of the doco. The Cure, Seeking Your Stories. So basically we just want anyone to jump on there and leave us a message so that we can get in contact and just have a chat about your experience or what you might have heard about some of these conversion therapies. And actually just if you're looking to access some information, we've got a bunch of information up there. So
fabulous. So it's just is it just The Cure as it's like a fan page that can jump on?
It's just a fan page. So The Cure, the band will come up first, and then we'll be somewhere underneath that. So just troll through.
I was going to say you might have a couple to go through. Yeah, well, I'm sure we can put some kind of link onto your project or something from our page as well on Facebook. So we're up there at the minute. So, but I was going to say something. Ruth, Ruth, no one can actually hear
Ruth's
you.
Ruth's going to go undercover.
Ruth's going to go undercover.
Great. We'll
Actually,
take off on that.
there was a journalist who has done some writing for Pride up here. Queensland. Was it the Queensland Pride? The magazine, and for when she was writing for another particular publication down south, she's actually she's a very open, very comfortable with her sexuality, lesbian. She went along to as a journalist to one of these programs for the day. Really, really interesting story about how they approached this kind of therapy. And I can't remember her name. I'm going to find out for you guys and whack it on your page, I think. But she was talking about, and after lunch, it was just really difficult for her, even just coming back after lunch, to hear these people continually basically being told that they were wrong, and they were, all of these horrible things with themselves, and they would be saved if they could embrace,
And this idea that if your Christian or religious faith is strong enough, then you will be able to change your... And they don't... A lot of these programs don't actually refer to it as homosexuality. They refer to it as SSA, same-sex attraction. And same-sex attraction is a choice and something that you can repress. And so...
What about opposite-sex attraction? That's my thing. Is that a choice?
Well, actually, I suppose that and a lot of them are, I think there's been a real shift in these programs over the last 10 years or so to getting away from looking quite sort of isolated and a bit nut-jobby to be quite more mainstream, because they actually don't necessarily preach that you can change your sexuality to heterosexual. They preach abstinence, celibacy,
so they're
sex negative, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and as Helen's saying, they do appear to be very credible from the outside, and
with psychologists
Yes,
and
exactly.
social workers or what have you, and
absolutely.
right.
counsellors, and
And Dr. Paul Martin was talking to us about how that can be very dangerous in itself for someone's mental health, because homosexuality, like unlike many other things, is a concealable stigma. So you can go throughout a lot of your life and really hide your true self.
We've got a number of our own listeners that actually listen to this show that have written into us at one time or another, saying that, from ages from 13 through to 60 that I've heard from about different, the fact that they often will hide who they are, and it's just easier sometimes to get through life that way. But now to put that added pressure of these kind of, it's not something that's new. I suppose this has been around for a very long time.
And particularly for members of the gay community, or for someone who's a homosexual who actually has a faith, Christian faith or a religious belief, they're being told by their religion that they probably were brought up with, or that if their faith is strong enough, then they'll be able to change, which fundamentally means that if you do have some sort of connection with God or your interpretation of God, and you can't change from being a homosexual, then you've let God down. And that's a massive, for people who are faith-based, that is a massive kind of psychological issue, because you structure your entire, your life and your beliefs around that. And if you're not measuring up, then, you can kind of be a lot harder on yourself than maybe.
Yeah. So a lot of these places are run, as you said, from Christian-based religions and these sort of groups. Are they funded solely by these as well, or where is the money coming from for these as well? Because the church doesn't put out money even for a set of new doors on the front of the church. They have to get that from the community. So I'm just wondering maybe where the money is coming from.
Well, sadly enough, a lot of it would be coming from the people who want to change, because I've seen some of the course figures that I was really quite shocked at. One which was over several weeks was like $800 to $900. So, it's not small amounts of money that are also being made. So,
so you've got to wonder about the altruistic virtues of these programs. There's definitely
money making.
Yeah, there's a financial aspect to it, absolutely. It's particularly when you're looking at a course that's going to cost you several $100s, and there's no guarantee and there's no promises, obviously, that you'll be successful, and they urge you that if you aren't successful the first time, try again. So yeah, at the same time, look, the documentary is definitely, particularly with our research, we want to aim to reach out to everybody who's connected to the issue to get in contact with us. So if you're somebody who has been through one of these programs and felt that it was beneficial to you, please still get in contact with us and talk to us about it so that we can hear your story, because from where we sit, the research tends to drift towards people that have tried and tried and tried, gone through a whole lot of heartache and come out the other side with no success.
Yeah. I think probably now's a really great time to look at this sort of stuff as well, with the renewed focus on mental health. On a federal level as well, in terms of funding and programs and available bed spaces and all those sorts of things on a national level. Maybe it's time that these sorts of issues are actually brought up as well, to try and, I don't know, get some kind of support for real therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
For want of a better term.
And I guess that's what the documentary is ultimately about, is bringing these sort of conversion therapies out of the dark and bring them into the I guess the mainstream media, and I think that a lot of people that I've spoken to, gay or straight, are quite surprised that a lot of these organisations are still running and basically with no regulation of any kind. So,
well, that's true too. You know, what are the requirements to actually run one of these things? Well, you got an old church hall and a couple of people at the front with no guarantee of qualifications or understanding of the actual situation.
That's right. So they're pitching themselves as counselling with no affiliation with any kind of regulated board.
Yeah.
So that's concerning. Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that's fair enough. We're going to risk actually looking right now to get a link up on our Facebook to The Cure, to the documentary The Cure, not the band The Cure. So we can... Though. Yeah, so we can direct.
Also great.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that can be Love Cats can introduce your doco.
Yes,
you get the rights to that.
Friday,
one.
I'm in love, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I've just got a bit of a thing for Love Cats because it's part of the Debs. Have you seen Debs? No, great queer film, great lesbian film, and it's got this great scene where they play Love Cats behind it. It's very, very cool. So awesome. Okay, sweet. Thanks. Keep us posted on what you guys are doing as well. Give us an update when
Yeah,
will do. Thank you so much for having us in. Appreciate getting the chance to have a chat about it.
Anytime at all. As I said, keep us informed with what you're doing, because it sounds really, really interesting, and we will certainly let people know what's happening with your doco as it gets up and running, because I think these sorts of topics really need to get looked at.
That's right.
And I'm absolutely horrified that these sorts of things are running in Queensland. Because, I was always like, oh, that stuff happens in Sydney and Melbourne. But I forget that Queensland is really ahead in some areas and really not in others. So
I think we become quite isolated in Brisbane too. I mean, if you start to move outside of a centralised population, there are people more isolated in our community that are getting this kind of information instead of real counselling. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, fair enough. And when you haven't got brilliant access when you're out in the regions to internet and different alternative ways of thinking and different alternative maybe support mechanisms, then it can be very limiting as well. Sweet. Okay, we've just managed to find The Cure, Seeking Your Stories. Is that right?
That's the one.
Excellent. The Cure, Seeking Your Stories. Look for it now on Facebook. Fan them and see if you can get involved in some way or help them out. Especially if you've been involved in one of these particular gay to straight / XSSA /
post-gay is the new one.
Post-gay.
It's like postmodern, but gay.
or post-colonisation. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Beautiful. So we're allowed to use the word ex-gay because that would then suggest that you're gay in the first place.
Exactly.
And quite frankly, there is no such thing as gay in the first place. That's just confused. Right. We might head to a little bit of a... No, I'm going to whack a different track on. I've just had to change my mind because I think that this is something that you need to do after having listen to the story that we've just been talking about, and that's called Breathe In Now. This is a little bit of George with an old track from years back, actually, but I got renewed by my love of Katie Newton when she came and performed live for us the other week. So have a listen, see if you like this one. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Keep us posted and we'll let people know.